people apply. You know, people step forward. A lot of times that you'll have a need in the community, and people talk about it, they'll gripe, and they don't do anything about it. But we had 9 outstanding people apply, really good people. But you know, I'm going to tell you what, we had 9 good people apply, but I got to choose a great one. You know, I don't push any punches, a great one. And the thing about it is I prayed about it, I thought about it, who to pick. I said, you know what, I'm not gonna just go the line. I'm gonna pick somebody that will make an impact. You know? And fact of the matter is, how am I so confident? What did I base it on? Number one, Brian Kropp is meticulous in what he does. He doesn't just shoot from the cuff. He's very thorough, very detail-oriented, but most importantly, Matthew chapter 20 says to be a leader. You want to lead people, you got to serve them. And Brian Kropp is going to be a great counselor because he's been a great servant of the people. And I look forward to him, the judge swearing him in, and him being at the meeting tomorrow, hitting the road running. And I look forward to him being on the council that I lead and reminding everybody, remember, I picked him.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
And if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me, I state your name.
I, Brian Kropp,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter of the City of Newton Falls,
and the Charter of the City of Newton Falls,
that I will not make any expenditures
that I will not make any expenditures
of public money
otherwise than for
adequate consideration
adequate consideration
and efficient service
and efficient service
to the City of Newton Falls,
to the City of Newton Falls,
that I will not be influenced
that I will not be influenced
by any consideration
by any consideration
except that of merit and fitness
except that of merit and fitness
in the appointment
in the appointment
and discharge of employees,
and discharge of employees,
and that in all other respects
and that in all other respects
I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
the
duties incumbent on me
duties incumbent on me
as a member of council
as a member of council
for the City of Newton Falls
for the City of Newton Falls
from July 7th, 2021. Is that
July,
correct?
what is today?
Today's
July 5th.
the
July
5th.
5th.
Okay,
July
July 5th, 2021.
So from July 5th, 2021,
According to law,
according to law,
to which I've been elected,
to which I've been appointed,
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
We'll just sign here. Nice signature.
Should have been a doctor.
Yeah.
That's a nice pen, Judge.
Yeah. Okay, take this and fill that out and then bring that into the clerk's office.
Absolutely.
Get a copy for yourself and that you're.
Judge, thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much.
Good luck to you all. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'll make this real brief. I just want to say a few words. First of all, I want to thank my wife and my sons for being here, my family, my parents, everybody for being here, everybody for showing up. Like this is, I didn't expect all this, and I'm so thankful to see all these faces, the sea of faces that are here, and the support that I've had. And I really want to do a great job, and I really want to live up to the expectations and everything that the mayor said. That's really my goal. My focus is just to better the community. I love this town. I've been here for 11 years this month, and we just want to see great things happen. There's so much potential and so many opportunities here moving forward. And I'm just really excited to get to work. So thank you guys all for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Pam, thank you for letting us use your beautiful place here. It's fantastic. And again, guys, thank you so, so much. Let's get to work. Thanks, everybody. That's all I got. Quick and painless. Thank you, Judge. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you very, very much.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call to order this July 6, 2021 Newton Falls regular council meeting to order. If you could turn your devices off, set them to vibrate, and stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Time of prayer. Precious Lord God, we thank you for the opportunity to join here together to be about the community's business. Dear Lord, we intend on elevating this community by elevating you. Dear God, we do pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. Okay, if Mrs. King wants to call for the roll.
Braymeyer. Bariak.
Here.
Splitzer.
Present.
Zimmerman.
Here.
Crop.
Here. I would like to make a motion to excuse Ms. Braymeyer. I know she wasn't feeling very well, so I'm pretty sure that's why she's not here tonight.
Okay, do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, she called me and she was feeling quite ill.
Okay. I wish you would have called me earlier, though. I'm just saying. Special presentations, none. Public comments, limited to agenda items, name, address, 3 minutes until previously requested. And we have 3 individuals with 10 minutes. The first of them, Miss Katie Carl.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. I'm addressing the chair per agenda items, and the first is the previous minutes. I'd like to go over for our community and the citizens of our community. Part of it are the previous minutes, but also council rules and the charter, our charter. And sir, I'm addressing you because you are the chair, and all comments are supposed to be addressed to you, sir, since you're the mayor and the chair of our committees. And general rules and the rules of conduct and procedure for our city council, all council meetings shall be conducted in accordance with the city charter, the applicable laws of the state of Ohio, and unless otherwise specified, the rules and procedures outlined in Robert's Rules of Order. And there's from just last meeting's minutes, excuse me, I'd like to go through and show our citizens where us citizens have been, well, we haven't been represented properly by multiple members of our body, and that needs to be addressed and needs to be helped. And you'll have to excuse me. Congratulations to Mr. Kropp. He was not here, so minus, and I am going to address him for a minute, minus Mr. Kropp because he was just appointed. So please absent yourself from this, sir. So going through the previous minutes on the agenda this evening, July 6th. All right, special presentation. Council rules state that anything that is put on the agenda must be added to the agenda. That's Council Rule number 9. It has to be by a majority vote. These are the general rules. Majority vote of council before anything can be added to the agenda. Any special presentation, any items, or anything else. It's in your council rules. And again, it's under Section 9. It has to be a majority vote of council before anything can be added to your agenda. That's under your own council rules. Okay, going right along under public comments. Okay, special presentation was granted to a member of the community. Again, that's against council rules number 9. It has to be by a majority vote of council. That's another against your rules. Another member spoke to against about the finance department, and again, that's under rules of conduct. Number 7 against number 9. Okay, that's a confidentiality under your rules of conduct, the public can't speak to that or about that because that's a confidentiality, a breach of confidentiality. That's something that cannot be spoke to or about on the floor here. That's something that has to be talked about in executive session or before it gets to the floor here. It's not allowed to be spoken about in public. Again, further on down, it was spoken about the law director has taken upon himself, and I'm going by the printed copy that was given out, not approved yet, the minutes, if anyone's questioning this. It was an attack, personal attack, that's against the rules of conduct. That's under number 7 of your rules of conduct. Number 7, it's a threat. The public cannot make threats against anybody. The exact words are accusations or suggestions of impropriety or illegal conduct and/or comments or attacks of a personal nature by members of council and/or against members of council are prohibited. That's not allowed. Okay, and number 9 was the disclosure to any person or party not a member of council or any confidential information discussed by or presented to council in executive session unless authorized by a majority vote. That was what I was referring to. So if anybody was curious what I was referring to. Okay, the next page, and I'm speaking to you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, different members of council brought up different things. Again, there was a reference made about a package that was marked confidential. Again, that's against, in your rules of conduct, number 7. It was number 9, confidential clause. That can't be brought up on the floor. Next page, page number 4. About money spent on the report the city manager has spent over. Okay, in the charter, section 12, this is a couple different ones. Interference of appointments. Article 4, the city manager section. 2, his duties. Okay, very clearly in the charter it states his duties. Okay, he shall make such recommendations to the council concerning the affairs of the city as may seem to him desirable, keep council advised of financial conditions and future needs of the city, prepare and submit an annual report, and such other reports may be required to council, issue all licenses and permits pursuant to ordinances, and perform all other duties prescribed for him in this charter or imposed upon him by any members of council. He's also supposed to, he shall see that the contracts and ordinances of the city and the laws of the state of Ohio are enforced. That's part of the city manager's job duties. That's right here in the charter. Article 4, city manager, section 2, under his duties. That's what he's supposed to do. So again, that's another violation moving forward. Page number 5, under the minutes that have not been approved. Another attack. Bariak said the law director changed his opinion. Rules of conduct and interference of appointments. Both of those. Number 6, Mayor Klein stated the law director commented on something. Rules of conduct, interference of appointment. When the law director or your attorney gives you a legal opinion, and well, you can agree or disagree, whichever way it goes, but that's your attorney. That's interference of appointments. Page 7, attack, the 3rd paragraph down, again, rules of conduct in your council rules, number 7. Page 7 at the bottom, interference with appointments. That's a major one. Charter, Article 3, Section 12, interference with appointments. I can read you that. That's a big one. Article 3, Section 12. Neither the council nor any of its members shall direct or request the appointment of any person to or his removal from office by the city manager or by any of his subordinates, or in any manner take part in the appointment or removal of officers and employees in the administrative service of the city. The council and its members shall deal with the administrative service solely through the city manager, and neither the council nor any member thereof shall give orders to any subordinate of the city manager, either publicly or privately. Any councilman charged with violating the provisions of this section upon conviction thereof shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and shall thereby cease to be a councilman. These are serious breaches of the oaths of office of multiple members of council. This is why the public and our citizens need to know this. Page number 9. Another legal opinion, interference of appointments. It's halfway down the page of these minutes. Questioning the legal opinion again, interference of appointments. The Charter, Article 3, Section 12. The bottom of the page of page 9, legal opinion of the Charter, Article 3, Section 12, interference of appointments. The next page, page 10 of the minutes that have not been approved.
Okay, you're going to need to finish up. Your time is up.
The 10 minutes are up?
Yes.
Okay. Again, if you go through the Charter, every single one of our heads of departments, it says, and I will finish up, the membership and terms of council are legislative, and all of the heads of department are under the supervision of the city manager. You do not have to agree with the city manager. I don't, but it's the position and not the person. And no personal attacks are supposed to be allowed. That's in your own rules. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next person is Mr. Richard Curlin.
Rick Curlin, 611 North Canal Street, Newton Falls. Ms. Katie, I heard you talking about some of those violations, but you didn't tell us which violations they were, just that they were violations. And I was curious about that. But it was wonderful to hear your interpretation of the charter. It really was. We really appreciate your interpretation. I think other interpretations are obviously a little more important since the minutes were approved by everyone. So I guess everyone made the mistake, not just one person. But to get down to some other things that are on the agenda, that again would be the approval of the date for recall. I would think by now it would be time to name a date. We started this in January. It's cost the city probably $100,000 with what we have paid the Supreme Court and the time and the efforts gone into it. And if not, Mr. Lynch, I'll bet you it would be $50,000. What would you think? I'll bet it would. But the other things it cost is a lot of time and effort and inconvenience by the people of this town to go this far. We have talked about what the law director has said about having it in a primary. I have disagreed with him, and I have some case law that was in that opinion by, in fact, your brother's court, Mr. Lynch. They're the ones who interpreted this and said that the previous consideration was what counted for the ordinance, and that would have been the ordinance that was the old ordinance for recall that demanded that we put on the primary, or excuse me, the general election, the recall. Well, that's not what the problem is now. This is the new interpretation. So again, it's right on case law, and it's in your brother's court right now that you can look it up and find out what we said. So let's set a date, gentlemen. The committees, I think, is very important. Since I ran across something the other day in public records, and I don't know, Mr. Zimmerman would know more about this, where we took out $400,000 in February from the reserve account, I believe, and then another $400,000 in the investments on March, I believe. And I couldn't find anywhere, neither could the person who was really checking on this, where we either paid that back or what it was really used for, except it was put in the general fund. But that's $800,000. It's a lot of money. Are we going to pay it back, Mr. Zimmerman? And why didn't you come every time when they ask, what have you done at the meetings? Why didn't you announce that we had $400,000 that we took out of the revenue stream and we put it in the general fund in February? We did the same in March. I just can't understand why you didn't say that. And in closing, I guess I'll say congratulations to our new councilman. I would hope now that perhaps we can change some things. We can move forward on things that we haven't done, that there'll be no more worries about quorums and none about that everyone will vote, and that the people of this community will finally get some things done. We need to quit spending money on attorneys and quit the lawsuits. I think you said at the beginning of the year, Mr. Lynch, it was you, or it was Mr. Alberini, that he was very proud of the fact that we never got sued. Well, I guess he wouldn't be so proud now. But I hope that we move forward, make some changes, and we get some things accomplished. And again, I thank you, Katie, for your interpretation. It was wrong, but I thank you very much.
Okay, and the last person with 10 minutes is Miss Julie Lemon.
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. I couldn't be at the last meeting. I was not feeling well, but I did watch it on YouTube. And while I was watching, I had heard something, and it came from you, Mr. Lynch, and there was another something I heard from Mr. Zimmerman in regards to the funds for the fire department. Mr. Lynch, you said that the Lucas chest compression unit that was purchased by the township, the CPR unit that you referred to, was $15,000. Well, you're part right. It was $15,000, but it was actually $19,655. You see, the township gave our joint fire department a sub-recipient grant from leftover COVID funds. And in that grant, the fire department bought this chest compression unit. And if you don't know what it is, I encourage you to look it up and see what it does. It's actually quite unique. Anybody who has ever done CPR on anybody knows that when you are doing the compressions, your arms get tired, your hands get tired. And someone that is CPR trained and in the medical field, I can tell you that it is a workout. But this chest compression unit actually gives that constant compression that could save somebody's life if somebody's hands get tired. It's a very good purchase. They also purchased PPE for $400. And then they applied $1,523.15 at the end of 2020, the EMS wages, the balance of all that went. It was a total of $21,578.15, not $15,000, Mr. Lynch. You completely underestimated that. It's a difference of $6,578.15. So those were your words, not mine. You said $15,000. So as the village manager, you got to get your facts straight. You can't underestimate. You can't overestimate. You need to get it right. And my questions I have are, why hasn't, this was all done in December and January. December of 2020, the purchase, it was ordered. The Lucas unit was ordered in December. It was paid for in January. So what I'm trying to figure out is why, you seem to have no problem with frivolous motions and spending money on that, on ice sculptures and other unnecessary items. But I want to ask, where did all the COVID money go from? Because the fire department they were left out of the second round of COVID. And, so clearly, township knew. So as the village manager, you should have known that the fire departments were left out of that. I mean, did the first responders that come to help us in our time of need, don't you think they deserve the proper gear and attire? I would think so. Mr. Zimmerman, you've been on the fire board for months. Mr. Bariak asked you at the last meeting where the bids were. I think I'm gonna ask you the same question. Don't the fire department and the first responders needs, don't they warrant your full attention? Because your response, and I listened to it and I watched it again today, was that Mr. Lynch had the bids when Mr. Bariak asked you. So I have to ask you, do you have to seek Mr. Lynch's permission to participate as an appointed representative of the community? So I want the council, I want to paint a picture for you. I want to paint a picture for everybody here. So I'd like, if you can, close your eyes. And I want you to imagine that it's 3 a.m. in the morning. Your house is on fire and engulfed in just a cloud of flames and smoke. You're completely panicked and petrified. Can you imagine it? Everything you own is gone. You're worried about yourself and you're worried about your family and getting them out. Who's coming to your rescue? Is it our joint fire department? Or is it Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Lynch? As citizens of the community, we as the community and you as the council, we're duty bound to meet every need possible for our emergency responders, whether it's in a levy or not. And I had a question as to whether or not the city can spare the funds for the uniform and boots. Then I answered my own question. We did. We absolutely did have the money and money to spare. $40,000 plus has been spent on attorneys in Cleveland for frivolous lawsuits. The lowest bid was $10,031.04. And that was the lowest bid by Red Diamond for uniforms and boots. That's still left around about figure of $30,000 plus. This community needs to take care of our fire, our EMS, and our police departments, because when the need is there, whether it's a fire, a robbery, or you need an ambulance, they're the people that come to our aid. They're the ones that leave every shift and put their lives on the line. They're the ones that you can count on. And I would not place my life or the lives of those I love and treasure in the hands of those who care more about themselves and their own personal gains than those who serve and protect our community. Thank you.
John Richards, 212 Albert Street. And this will be brief. Under new business, item 4 on the committee's assignments. I just urge you all to take care of this tonight. This has been hanging for a long, long time. And we really need to get the committee sorted out. And I would urge the public to pay attention to when these committees meet and to attend those meetings and let us know what's going on. But it will be good to see a functioning government with the committee assignments taken care of, and then maybe we can get about doing the people's business. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to reports. Mr. Zimmerman, do you have anything for Ward 1?
Yes, sir. Okay, there we go. Okay, I attended the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. Ms. Spletzer will go over in her report what happened there. I volunteered at the bike show and the Jeep crawl the past weekend. I was honored to work with both committees, the Bike Show Committee and the 4th of July Committee, on those 2 days. There's a lot that goes into putting on the bike show and the Jeep crawl that they did, and it was an honor to work with them and see the people involved and to understand what goes into this. I want to thank again the Bike Show Committee and the 4th of July Committee for it's been a great week here in Newton Falls, starting with the bike show and the Jeep crawl, continuing with the parade, with the carnival we had in town. The Lions Committee put a lot of Lions Club, put a lot of time and effort into organizing the carnival and having that going. The hot air balloons were fantastic here in the park. If anyone hadn't had a chance to see them, they were beautiful. It was a great thing. There were thousands of people that came into the city just to see those balloons. I wanted to thank, if anyone hasn't seen the picture in the parade, paper the other morning of the parade, the picture that showed the 2 fire trucks in the middle of the street with the flag suspended between them with the baskets from the hot air balloons blasting flames on either side of that flag. It was a nice picture to see. I want to congratulate fellow appointee, Councilman Crop. Welcome to the position. Look forward to working with you. The city will be watching. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Bariak, do you have anything for Ward 2?
Very briefly, I would too like to thank the 4th of July Committee for all their hard work for the bike show, the fireworks, the parade. There's too many people to just start naming. I want to thank all of them. It's a very, very nice that went on over the weekend. And also I attended the swearing-in ceremony and of Mr. Crop, and I was honored to be asked to be invited to attend. And I want to say I'm glad you stepped up, sir. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Spletzer, do you have anything for Ward 3?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Mine starts with Tuesday, June 29th. We had our very first Park and Recs Committee meeting, and Mr. Stinson was once again appointed as the chairman of the committee. Jamie Klein was appointed the secretary, and Mr. Rusko is the co-chair. They set the meetings to occur every month from that time through September. They're going to do them once a month until November. And by the way, the meetings are being held on the 4th Tuesday of each month at 5:30. Now, the items that they did address during the meeting, they did pass a motion for removal of the nets and poles from the tennis courts that seem to be interfering with the pickleball courts. They did talk about a dog park, and they are waiting to see if there is more public interest in the dog park. They entertained the idea of the batting cages that were brought up, I believe, sometime possibly even in late 2019, and they chose to table that particular item until they could get some more information from the village manager. One of the other things that they are looking forward to is receiving a parks master plan. I believe this is something that was promised to them back when even Mr. Savette was still serving on city council and was serving in that position. So one of the things that really does need to be addressed is the park master plan. And then as an item of new business, they did discuss finding a permanent home for the soccer league, hopefully in the city park if possible by next year. And I also participated in the 4th of July parade. I walked with my fellow veterans and carried the flags of our nation. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Do we have anything from finance?
Yes. The auditors are back on site as of today. They will be here the rest of the week. And so far, the audit is on point. Everything is going great.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns for the law department?
Do you have a report?
Do I get to give a report?
Yourself? Yeah, I forgot about you. Sorry about that. Yeah.
It's been a while since someone was here to give the report, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, do you have anything for at-large, Mr. Crop?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that. Got forgotten immediately. I got forgotten upon getting here. I just wanted to say thank you to all the support that I've gotten from everybody from the community. It's been overwhelming, I got to say. The swearing was fantastic, but it didn't, I have to say, it did not beat or trump the 4th of July ceremonies and the fireworks. I've been coming to the fireworks for 30 plus years, as long as I can remember, honestly, and that was one of the best displays I've ever seen. And I think everybody that was there saw it as well, would agree that it was amazing. It was a really good display. So I just want to say thank you, and that's really all I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions, comments, or concerns for the Finance Department, Council? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been repeated issues regarding public records. I'd like to take a few minutes to try to explain some of these things because we oftentimes frustrate the citizens that ask for some of these public records. And it's not overly complicated, but there are some issues. I'd like to point some of them out. First, I want to tell you what a public record is. Public record is it's a physical media. It's something that it physically exists. It's fixed and it's in place. It is either created by us, document created by us, or in cases such like invoices, it comes from someone else that becomes part of our public record, created by someone else, but is kept by us as a constant public record. And what's important is it documents the public's activity. Those three things have to be included in order to be a public document. It has to be a fixed media, created or sent to us and created by another jurisdiction, but taken into our possession to document our activity. What's not public records is personal papers, things that are kept for convenience by individual administrative staff or employees. We have a retention schedule, a policy that's in place. Records are not kept forever. As long as we follow that retention schedule, there are some certain documents that may no longer be available. So if it's past that time, it would not be a public record. We can't produce it if it's past the retention schedule. Keep in mind, most of the most important papers are kept for a long period of time. Things like our ordinances are pretty much kept forever, but it has to be within our retention period for it to be there. When the public records and sunshine law indicates you have to give us time to respond. What it means is first we have to retrieve those records. Those records are not sitting in one big pile at one spot. If you're asking for something for finance, it's in a different office in a different building. We have time for our records clerk to retrieve it. Then it has to be reviewed. It has to be checked by the law department to make sure it's in compliance, we're not violating any rules. And then we have to redact or remove certain items if they are not public records. This takes a process. We get people asking for public records saying, I want this record but tomorrow afternoon. We try to comply, but oftentimes we cannot. Immediate frustration. There are mandatory exceptions to the public records law. For example, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, law enforcement data system, private health information from individual employees. It's not public records, no matter how much you ask for it. Attorney-client privilege, if it's pending litigation or is a part of a preparation of attorney-client privilege, those things are not generally public records. There are plenty of other exceptions. If you go to ORC 149.43, it lays out all the public records information. But again, other exceptions, medical records, trial preparation records, confidential investigatory records, things like social security number. Sometimes a social security number appears on a document. We will redact that social security number and the rest of the document will be released. But those are the type of things we have to review to make sure they're not in the documents. There are also records that are required and prohibited by both state and federal law to be redacted or removed or not public records. This one surprises people. You can't get information including names, addresses of people's utilities, their use, their amount, and what they pay. Those utilities informations are not public records. Personal bank information, including tax information that may be either directly or indirectly found from paperwork, have to be removed. And there's like 19 to 20 solid exceptions listed in the law. So, having said that, I'd like to give you some examples of some of the public records requests we got and what happened with them. Someone asked, please provide me a weekly total of the balances of the general fund from March 1st, 2021 to the present. The city doesn't do weekly balances. So balances are monthly, and they're usually not closed for at least 30 days after that month is in period. So we have no obligation to create a public record. If we don't do it regularly, it's not part of the process. So if the normal balancing is done by a month, the only accurate balancing amount would be the monthly one, and we could provide it with the following month, 15 to 20 days thereafter in most cases. So again, I'm asking for prior payments, retainer fees, and this part, anticipated fees for a law firm. Anticipated fees are not public records. We don't know what the fees are going to be. We don't know until an invoice is submitted. Any payments or invoices, once they're invoiced and paid, now those invoices have become public records. I would like to know what steps were taken on the ethics violation that occurred at the council meeting on Monday, June 21st, 21. Well, the steps taken are not public records, and they're not until they're created in a fixed media. If I'm making phone calls, that's not steps, that's not a public record. And if you check the website, all correspondence to the Ohio Ethics Commission must be in writing, and it is privileged information. It's not public record. I want to know what the 4th of July festivities are costing the village. Again, these costs, people are asking us on July 3rd what the costs are for the July 4th expenditures. We haven't even been invoiced on many of them. Until we get invoices, we don't know what some of these costs specifically are. I would like a list of all the subcontractors that worked on or currently working on the municipal building. The city is not responsible for identifying subcontractors coming into the building. Unless they invoice us directly, then they wouldn't be subcontractors, they'd be contractors working for us. So if there's subs working for a contracting agency, it's not our job, we have to deal with the contractor. Are any of the COVID monies, they were speaking about COVID monies, in the special reserve fund currently allocated? If so, for what, and who has the authority to spend this money? First of all, once the money is received by us, it is a public record. But this money, this request came like the day it was in the newspaper that we're going to get funds. So we first don't even know how much funds are going to be. We don't have time to even try to look the things up and get within the time frame to verify what's in there. There's no record at the date of the request. If you request for something, if you want something that happened last weekend, you probably should wait 30 days for it if you want an invoice. Otherwise, we don't know it. And we'll say, well, there's no public record. How can you not have a public record? They did all this. Well, we didn't get to the invoice yet. Until they create the invoice, there's no public record. The second part of that request was who has the authority. That's not a public record request. That's asking for a legal opinion or some guidance on it. The authority doesn't come from any one place. There's no one record that gives authority for some of these expenditures. It could come from multiple locations. Here's one. Please forward all city expenditures for the days commencing July 1st, 2020 through October 23rd, 2020. Please include who the money is paid out to, either the company or the fund, the reason for the payment, and which fund was paid out of. That's a whole quarter of our expenses that the city's paying for. There are things we call overly broad or vague. If you're asking for something for a whole quarter of finances on 2 random dates you pick out, we don't have that report in that form. It would be separate daily forms, or in this case, monthly forms. And they're available, but we would like to have you contact us and try to get specific information on what sort of time frame you're looking at. We're not trying to withhold any information, but if every time someone asks for a quarter of the reports, we put finance reports together, they come out, we have monthlies that go to council, we have the auditors come in yearly, when the budget comes out in November, all the information's in there about the budget. All that information is available, and we will give that to the parties asking for it. But somebody asking for over 4 months of records specifying everything in there is quite overbroad. So what I'm saying is, it's helpful if you make a request for an actual document, something we probably have. We keep them. We keep them as long as the retention period requires, and be considerate of the time necessary in order to gather the records to make sure we're in compliance with all the laws by redacting the information that must remain public. Private. And that concludes my remarks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns for the law director? Mr. Bariak, you have the floor.
Excuse me. At last meeting, it was voted down not to go out for bids for the paving this year. Although we have rejected using the county paver, and I was told last week that when I asked Mr. Lynch, I would like to, as a matter of fact, I called Mrs. City Clerk, Mrs. King, and said, I want a motion put on the floor this week, sir, that to use Varnell. Now, they were the second lowest bidder. I was not satisfied. I didn't ask to go out for bids. Why wasn't my motion put on there to use Varnell instead of, why?
There were contractual obligations that the city has and you've used. We were in a co-op requirement when we worked with the county. And at this point, midway through the process, you behave counter contracts. And you should not get into two separate contracts at the same time.
Well, sir, we voted not to accept the lowest bid, which was Mr. Shelley and Sands. The next lowest bid was Varnell, and isn't that in the ORC that if we're not satisfied with the money, we can go legally with the second bid up? Are you aware of that, sir?
I'm aware you can go for the lowest and best bid. Best is also a requirement with regard to biddings.
That didn't answer my question, sir. I asked why can't we go with Varnell now? What was your statement again?
We were contractually obligated to work with the county based upon the fact we were part of the consortium that they began at the beginning of the year. If cities were to remove themselves from the consortium, then the county doesn't have the same powers. They get the contract and there'd be violations of contracts. So if the county engineer on behalf of 10 cities put out the bids and then 5 cities pull out by changing a contract to someone else, there's contractual obligations to the original company that the county processed with. As I discussed with you probably 2 meetings ago, oftentimes it's far best, instead of trying to fix what's happening this year, council should be looking at how to handle the bidding for next year. Because we were already in a consortium with the county engineer, with other cities, to take care of paving this year.
Why was this bid brought to us to accept Shelley and Sands? Why would we vote on it and we voted no? Why was it even, if we were contractually obligated, why did we have to go through that acceptance process, sir?
It was probably a courtesy. I don't recall exactly when you did that, Mr. Barrick, but it would be a courtesy. If it's within the budgetary authority of the administration, they would act upon the budget. If it's something past it, oftentimes, as a courtesy, these things are brought before council. And if you voted it down while a contract's in place, we can't go forward with it. The contract.
Okay, time's up. Let me see if somebody else wants to first address to the law director. Mr. Kropp, you want the floor?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Fritz, in reference to the comments you just made about public records, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you made comments previously on council floor about public records. You previously made comments on council floor about public records. If a public record did not exist, it would be stated as such, and sometimes public records don't exist, but the information exists, it's just not in record form. And if that was the case, that would be specified as well. I personally have made public records requests prior to my appointment and was denied access to public records, was not informed whether the information even existed, and if it just wasn't in record form. I worded those questions very specifically, very directly, and was basically denied and turned away. And I'll have to pull those up because I didn't know you were going to reference that tonight. I'll have to pull that up for the next meeting. But I think that's very important. If you could clarify that for me, because I've actually, like I said, personally requested if a record existed and if it did not, if the information existed just not in record form, and if no information, no record, etc., to be informed of that as well. And I was turned away repeatedly. So I think that might be a little bit where some of the frustration. Could you explain a little bit more what you meant about that and why I personally, not like I said, from my own perspective, I personally was denied access to my requests for public records and was not informed if those records existed or not, if the information existed or not, etc. Could you speak on that, please?
Mr. Kropp, I won't comment on any of these that you've talked about before without having in front of me, because I don't know what you're speaking of specifically, but we can certainly address it. If you want to send them to me, which ones they are, in the coming weeks, we can prepare for it and address it at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. I will.
Okay, is that all, Mr. Kropp?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any questions for the law director?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to address the law director
Okay,
as well.
you have the floor, Ms. Spitzer.
It took me over 3 specific requests to get Treasury Investment Board minutes, and ironically, they appeared in my email the day after our last council meeting. But in looking at these, I'm finding a lot of what to me feels like it's a shell game. In the February meeting, there was $250,000 moved from the Treasury Investment Board. There was an additional $150,000 moved from the Treasury Investment Board. And this was all because of some bonds issues that we're still having over the referendum from last summer. And then in March, it looks like there was a correction. Mr. Lynch explained that the motion at the last meeting was not correctly worded. The intention was to pledge the money as stated above and to not remove the money as mentioned. And then the one that troubles me the most is what actually happens to be said in the May 5th Treasury Investment Board minutes, that there was a motion and a second to transfer $500,000 out of the Charles Schwab and put it into the Huntington National Main account. That's $500,000 in one swipe. And it just seems to me like, for being this early in the year, we're barely halfway through the year. But there was money being shuffled and moved in February, in March, and then a big chunk again in May. And I just think that it's time that we get a little tighter oversight on what is coming in and going out of our accounts. And the actually specifically, I think I would like to have a conversation with you, Mr. Fritz, about the bonds. The people of this community successfully fulfilled a bond referendum issue back in the summer of 2020. And your notes say that Mrs. King sent it to the Board of Elections a day late. Well, that's not the fault of the people of this community. The people did what they needed to do. We need some clarification on this bond issue, your interpretation, the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections does not exist to tell us whether it is or is not administrative. All they know is they received petitions with sufficient signatures.
Okay,
So we need you to clarify the bond issue for the renovations on this building.
Okay, did you have a question there, Ms. Spletzer?
I'm telling him. He needs to clarify to the public the bond issue.
Okay. Do you have
on the referendum
a comment on
for the
that,
renovations?
Mr. Fritz, Mrs. Spletzer's time up for the first address. Do you have any?
Yes, the referendum was late for purposes of being on the election and remains in limbo as we sit here today.
Late by whom? It was turned in timely by the citizen committee that submitted it.
I'd have to look at the dates. I don't have them in front of me, but I don't believe that's true. I believe the citizen committees were actually late in delivering it to the Board of Elections by one day.
Okay. Mr. Zimmerman, did you have anything, or Mr. Kropp, did you have a first address?
No, sir.
Mr.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. Mr. Fritz, you had mentioned that you did not have that in front of you. I actually have that right in front of me, so I'll read it to you. Public Records Custodian, this was sent to Mrs. King. This was back in January 6th of this year, 2021. I am formally requesting a copy or copies of any all records of an official request on December 22nd, 2020 to call an emergency meeting to be held on December 30th, 2020. This request was made by the mayor, Vice President of Council, and/or 2 members of Council, as is required to call such a meeting per Article 3, Section 8 of the Newton Falls Village Charter, and any all records, documents, and/or information should reflect as such. If no records exist, please state as such. If the information requested exists but simply does not exist in record form, please state as such. If the formally requested records, documents, and/or information do not exist in any form whatsoever and cannot be provided per this request or any other request in any other form at any other time, please state as such. Ohio Sunshine laws require that records be provided upon request in a reasonable amount of time. My requests are not overly broad, complicated, or non-specific. I look forward to your timely response as the custodian of public records and as a public official, member of council staff, bound by law. Thank you. With utmost sincerity, Brian Kropp. The response I got back, Mr. Kropp, please be advised that no records exist. I responded back, with all due respect, as per my request and per our own law director, Andrew Fritz, simply stating a record does not exist does not fulfill my request as is specifically requested for you to state whether or not records exist, but also that if no records exist, but the information I've requested is available, but simply not in record form, to state that as well. Just for clarification and to satisfy my request on this particular request, are you stating that no records exist, no information exists, and that a request by the mayor, vice president of council, and/or 2 members of council never took place on December 22nd, 2020? Please clarify and respond in the format previously requested. You are legally bound and are subject to Ohio Sunshine laws, might I remind you. I look forward to an expedited and timely response. As it is apparent, there is nothing to look for or research further. Thank you so much. With regard, Brian Kropp. Response I got back, Mr. Kropp, the law director has informed me that I have fully complied with your records requests. Attorney Fritz advises me that any further questions or clarifications regarding your requests must be directed to him. His phone number is, etc. So could you clarify again, since I read that specifically to you, why I was not able to get those specific, very specific records, and why I was not told whether that information existed, or if there was no information whatsoever, or just not in record form? Could you explain that to me, please?
I will take a look at the minutes once they're typed up, go back to the section and review the emails and why we responded that way. But for whatever reasons, if we said no records exist, no records exist.
And according to your own statement on council floor, you stated that if records don't exist, that may not mean that there's no information, that just may not be in record form. Is that correct?
If you make a public records request, as I explained, there should be a public record, a document that is in physical form, kept by the city as part of our transactions.
And if such an item is not in a record form, but the information exists, you could state that, correct?
If the meeting was called via the phone call from 2 council members, I have no record.
Well, the explanation is it was in physical form, Mr. Kropp.
Could I request the phone records? That's a public record. Is that not in record form? There's a record of phone calls that happen to take place. Every phone call that comes into our building.
We don't have that type of records. We don't keep a phone log of every call that comes in. The telephone company may have it, but that's not our record to keep, it would be theirs. So if it was a phone call to schedule something, as Ms. King indicated, there'd be no physical record that the city held or would be keeping.
One more question, Mr. Fritz. If I were to request those phone records from the village clerk, would she have access to those?
From the phone company?
For a village employee's phone, I'm assuming you guys do you have village phones? Your contract states that you have devices.
I don't have a village phone, but.
Okay. I think the village manager probably has a phone. If somebody received a phone call, or Ms. King, I'm not sure if Ms. King has a village provided phone, or if that's the case, then there should be a public record of any phone transactions, any phone calls whatsoever, and those phone calls to request that particular meeting, if she's recalling that, there'd be a record of that.
That record would be held by the phone company, not by the city.
So again, I'll ask, if I ask Ms. King to request that phone record from the phone company that all of our village employees' phones are through, or the phone numbers that were called in, she could get that, correct?
I don't know.
Could you find out?
I'll certainly try. There's going to be an issue if you don't have specific dates, and the phones are allowed to be used for personal use, so it would be excluded any kind of personal communication on those phones. So there'd be quite a bit of redacting that may have to be done. But if there's a specific time frame when we may be able to get something, I don't know. I'm not the phone company.
Okay, Mr. Boric, were you looking for a second address?
Yes, just a simple question. Mr. Fritz, as a courtesy, would you please say, at last meeting, they said that Mr. Lynch said that the money would be coming out of he anticipated the money would come out of the general fund to pay for the roads. I see the signs going up, the markers being laid out. There was only $50-some thousand or 40-some, excuse me, I don't have the figure in front of me, in the road fund, and there was only 78. I don't have the exact figure now because it takes month to month. Where's the money coming from?
It's not a legal question, sir, so I can't answer that.
All right, well, I'll probably, well, like maybe Mr. Mr. Lynch will do it as a courtesy.
Mr. Barek, did you want to hold that until the city manager gives his report?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Anybody else want a second address before we move on to the city manager?
I'd like to read something into the record here. This is our notice of public records policy for the city of Newton Falls. And I'll just read this into the record as Mr. Fritz spoke on what records are what and what's viable and what's not. So the city of Newton Falls has adopted a public records policy to comply strictly with the Public Records Act of Ohio. Any exceptions to public access are to be narrowly interpreted, and any denial of access to public records in response to a valid request must be accompanied by an explanation, including legal authority, as outlined in the Ohio Revised Code. If the request is in writing, the explanation also must be in writing. A copy of the complete policy is available upon request. The City of Newton Falls, in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, defines records as including the following: any document, paper, electronic, including but not limited to email, or other format that is created or received by or comes under the jurisdiction of a public office that documents the organization, functions, policies, decisions, procedures, operations, or other activities of the office. All records of the city are public unless they are specifically exempt from disclosure under the Ohio Revised Code. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Butzer, do you want a second before we move on to the city manager?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Zimmerman, did you need an address?
No, sir.
Okay. City manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The July 4th activities were terrific. The July 4th committee, I want to mention especially Carol Kendall, who really has just been doing yeoman service, managing so many different elements of it. And she personally was also responsible for directly managing, because she has some other people that I guess I would call department heads, her managing of the Jeep crawl from Lake Milton, and it was just everything fell into place beautifully. I especially want to thank the police department, Chief Fixler and his staff. The crowds were the largest we've ever had. The traffic problems and difficulties were the lowest we've ever had. I mean, it's astonishing the way things worked. And I would be remiss if I didn't especially thank the auxiliary police department. Ladies and gentlemen, these are people that put on a uniform on a volunteer basis. They're not paid. They oftentimes take a lot of abuse under difficult conditions, a lot of heat. People are aggravated sometimes, especially after the fireworks. People are anxious to get home. And these auxies, we call them, are just an outstanding group of people. And I know, Chief, it's due to your leadership and the way you communicate with them and prepare them and train them as well. So to all of our personnel in the safety forces, we thank you for that. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks. I'm prepared to take questions.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns for the city manager? Mr. Borek, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd like to ask the question again. Since there was only $40,000 in the roads, and we need $217,000 was the bid, and last time I knew, I had an update, there was only about $70-some thousand in the general fund, which is, for this time of year to me, is very low. Where do you anticipate moving the money from, or how are we going to pay for this, Mr. Lynch?
Yeah, that update amount you have does not include, all of our revenue has been posted yet. The month of June hasn't been closed out yet, Mr. Bariak, but I've met with the finance director, and we anticipate that amount of revenue will be posted for the purposes of the general fund, and we'll have no trouble doing that, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Bariak?
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want an address for the city manager? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and give my report. I don't have too much, but it's been a busy couple of weeks. I attended the bike show and actually got to judge one of the categories with my wife. Went to the Jeep crawl and got to judge one of the categories there also with my wife, and attended the 4th of July festivities. And on the 4th of July, I was able to appoint Mr. Kropp as our at-large counsel, and want to congratulate him. Also along the way, I want to congratulate and thank Mr. Simmons for the bike show and his staff, or his partners, or whatever you want to call them. Mrs. Kendall, thank you to her. Thank you to the 4th of July committee, and the city employees and street employees and everybody else. Yesterday, attended the swearing-in ceremony of Mr. Kropp, and again wanted to congratulate him and thank Judge Vigorito, and that's all I have. Do we have any changes to tonight's agenda? No. Okay, approval of previous minutes, June 21st, 2021, regular meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
One simple discussion. I would just like the clerk to change Linda Nyheisel to Laura Nyheisel.
Okay.
Which,
At the end of the public comments.
at the back?
It is. It's page 11 or 12.
I can do that.
Okay, any other comments on the agenda before we go ahead and call for the roll? Okay, Mrs. King, did you get that?
I did.
Okay, can you call for the roll?
Bariak?
Yes.
Splitzer?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Kropp?
Yes.
Okay, minutes approved. Public hearings, there's none. Unfinished business, none. New business, number 1 is ordinance 2021-06, if Mrs. King could read.
An ordinance authorizing funds to the Newton Falls Joint Fire District for fire uniforms.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Zimmerman, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Kropp. Any discussion?
I would like to be recognized for discussion. In section 1, I would like it to specifically read up to $15,000 for fire uniforms. I'd like to add those 2 words in section 1, up to $15,000.
Okay, do we need to amend that? Okay. Do we have somebody want to make a motion to amend?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Boriak, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Kropp, roll.
This is for the motion to amend.
Yeah.
Splitzer?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Kropp?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, and the amendment, it's passed to be amended. Now, it's on the floor as the amended ordinance. Do we have any discussion on the amended ordinance? Okay, Mr. Boriak, Mr. Kropp, Mr. Zimmerman.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Do we have any facts or figures? I think there were some requests made at the previous meeting about just information in reference to the uniforms, number of firefighters, number of people involved, and just some overall figures that we can share with the public. If maybe Mr. Zimmerman or Mr. Lynch, if anybody has that information, would like to share just some facts and figures as far as the fire department is concerned, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Lynch?
Yeah, I'm going to request, if you could, for a brief suspension of the rules. The fire chief is here tonight. I know he wasn't here when this came up before, so
Okay.
if you don't mind suspending the rules for a minute.
I mean, does he have the information?
He does.
Okay.
Well, I know the chief has this
Okay,
information.
yeah. Does somebody want to make a motion to suspend the rules?
Motion, Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Kropp.
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Splitzer. Okay, roll call.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Kropp?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Splitzer?
Yes.
Okay, rules suspended. Good evening, members of council, honored members, and that. I want to try to help you understand a little bit about this ordinance and what we're trying to accomplish.
Try to get closer to the mic.
I'm sorry. The first answer is the number of members of the fire district. There are 41 members on the roster. There are 1 on military leave and 1 on medical leave as of now. We are in a constant state of change out of employees, meaning that employees come and others replace them as they leave. So we stay pretty fixed within that number range, going up and down a little bit. In the most diplomatic way I could describe is we come small, medium, and large, and sometimes a little extra large in size of person. So we generally try to give you a range of costs, but a person who wears a size 6 and a person who wears a size 15 obviously have a different expense level. What we are seeking to provide, and first let me say this, is as a fire district we provide the protective clothing on that, but other than that we only provide t-shirts and all the other required equipment, and it is required that you wear a pair of dark pants, you have a dark belt, you have safety shoes, and you wear if you're wearing any other type of shirt over that, it has to meet our minimum requirements of safety. But all of that is borne by the employees on their own expense. None of that is paid for by the district. So to equip an average firefighter ranges between $330 to $370 per person. That would include t-shirts, 2 pairs of pants, a pair of safety shoes, and an overshirt during the, all this needs to meet a minimum safety level of standard for bloodborne pathogens, fire resistance, and obviously with steel-toe type shoes and things like that would provide the safety on that. I'm going to give you some general numbers. Now, we were asked if we've gone to bid. We have not. What we have done is collect some information from vendors. We have not selected a vendor to purchase, but we have been trying to get some rough numbers as we have looked at this. To a pair of safety shoes, steel-toed shoes, which we generally require them to wear for protection against, obviously, hazards on emergency scenes, whether it be fire or EMS. They range anywhere from $130 to $150 or more, depending on the size of the person's foot and the style. We mandate that they wear a safety shoe, but they may choose that style. Some come with zippers, some are low or higher top type shoes, but as long as they meet the minimum requirements of being a safety shoe, protective from bloodborne pathogens and things of that nature, we really don't dictate the style, but just the type. Each person wears 2 t-shirts. We issue 2 t-shirts to them, but it's really unfair, especially in the last year of the COVID. We often made 3 or 4 uniform changes a day depending on the nature of the call, and that would be hard pressed. T-shirts, I'm a t-shirt guy, but they don't last that often when you're running through a heavy commercial washer with a special detergent to ensure that we are disinfecting them. So many of them had to purchase t-shirts on their own to ensure that they could maintain 2 uniform requirements every single day they worked. A pair of uniform pants, we require that they be a bloodborne pathogen type pants, meaning that anything that occurs on an EMS run won't go through their pants into their skin. Those pants range anywhere from $50 to $75 a piece. And of course, they could be a little more if you have a little more enjoyment of your meals, so they could be a little more expanded. But these are average numbers. That a pullover sweatshirt, again, has to meet a minimum of fire protective resistance, and also has to have a bloodborne pathogen or washable thing. That averages, again, $80 per person. So you can see an average minimum to the minimum, the smaller and less to the larger plus, ranges anywhere from $300 to $370 per employee. I just advocate that you would consider this it is really, no employee has ever come forward and said, I'm not going to buy this, I'm not going to do this. These employees are very dedicated to their service to our district, and I think it would be just an amazing act upon this council and body to support these firefighters, both men and women. We have a variety of sizes and who could use these uniforms. Even though COVID has sort of relaxed, we still have mandatory policies in effect. If we even believe we're the least bit exposed, they are required to change out their uniforms and wash them. We wash them in probably some of the harshest chemicals known to man, but when those are expired, then they purchase those out of their pockets and we reimburse them none. So I would be welcome to answer any of your questions.
Mr. Barrett.
Chief, I have the quotes. Why can't you tell us who's getting the bid? One was lower than the other one. Why? Red Diamond was lower than Mr. Safety Gear. Why haven't, this is taxpayers' dollars. When are we going to say who got the bid?
We haven't selected. First off, they're not bids, they're quotes.
Okay.
We haven't gone to bid to anything.
Okay, are you going to go, as Mr. Fritz says, with the lowest and best? Is it sealed bid?
It's not a sealed bid. I want to make that clear. They're not sealed bids, and we will go with the best. What will meet the most standards and equip us with the proper equipment.
Okay, Jimmy. Who do you feel's got the best quality equipment?
There are a variety of vendors. I'd be dishonest if we said we have looked at steel-toe boots. There are companies that are in our state and in our area, and companies out of our state and out of our area. Some of the larger manufacturers of fire gear build high-quality safety shoes. There are local vendors in the area that sell those shoes, and there are vendors that do not sell those shoes. Red Diamond is a uniform provider, but there are also uniform providers that are out of the area. One of the things I think is most difficult, and if I could just elaborate on that, these are not cookie-cutter uniforms. We're not walking into Walmart, going to the shelf and picking a pair of pants off the shelf. There are a variety of styles that fit the variety of style, if I could use that term to understand it. We have different waistlines, different cuts, different people. We want to get what will fit them best and be most comfortable, but stay within a guideline of what we need and what we can afford. And so we haven't selected any one vendor. First, we have gotten some ideas what some of these would cost, but we have not selected any vendor to provide anything as of yet.
Do you feel comfortable saying you could keep it under 15,000?
I'm confident that we will stay at that mark.
Thank you.
Okay, with us waiving rules of council, I'd like to see what Mr. Stenson wants there.
So, Chief, if you're not going to do a cookie cutter, or you're saying that you don't have a cookie cutter type, instead of the city going out for a bid, if you will, like what we're doing, can we just give each firefighter an allowance and let them purchase their own? That way, they're individually buying whatever they feel is the best, as long as it meets their minimum or our minimum requirements.
What he was asking is a very common thing in a lot of departments called a clothing allowance. And yes, if the ordinance or council would put that into effect, we could then say that there is an allotted amount for a firefighter as long as they meet the minimum standards that we have established. They could purchase wherever they choose to purchase that from. And they would then, either we would issue a PO or they would then have to produce a required.
With the uniforms that you're looking to purchase, there's some of the uniforms just shelved to have in case you have somebody else come on, or are they for your active?
They're actually, each firefighter working has to have a minimum of 2 uniforms. In the event that they were exposed, they have to be able to change out of their clothes. Most of them carry 3 or more, depending on their time on duty, so that they, at any time we receive a report of an alarm, particularly in the EMS factor, we get some dispatch information, and if that person would possibly meet any of the COVID questions, then that
that crew and that ambulance have to decon when they come back.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, comment. Would we, in what Mr. Stinson said, and I'm familiar with this as far as clothing allowance and stuff are concerned, you say that the average per firefighter is between $330 and I think you said $330 and $370 per person. Would it make more sense, as Mr. Stinson said, to make an allotment for each piece of this equipment that you're looking for and make an allowance for each member, and depending on their size or needs or styles or whatever, if that met their allowance, if they could come in under, great. If they had to come in over, if they needed a pair of boots, and we allotted $150 for a pair of boots, which I think is pretty reasonable. Some guys might want an $80 pair of boots. Some guys might want a $190 pair of boots. Would that be a viable option as opposed to just a lump sum or up to a lump sum and then having to hit that number? And how often, second part of that question is, how often would something like this be necessary? Would this be a yearly allowance? Would this be a, every other year, every so often?
The answer to your question, we've modeled some of this after other departments who have clothing allowance. Some of them operate on a 3-year cycle, some operate on a yearly cycle. Last year was an exceptional year, and the wear and tear on their uniforms was far. Most commonly, it would be easy to say a pair of professional fire personnel boots last approximately a year. Pants could last a week to 3 years. It's unknown.
Right.
We try to provide T-shirts every year for the members. So the answer to your question, it could be 1 to 3 years. I don't have a perfect answer. We're modeling it after some of the other departments we see, but their run volume is not equivalent to ours. And so that would probably affect the wear and tear of the uniforms.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Brian?
Chief, when I got the quotes, first of all, I still didn't answer how come now we're going to go out and start getting a lot more quotes? I only got 2 companies bidding, and it seemed that the Red Diamond had lower prices, more choices, and except like if you went up to 3X, you paid $10 more. Is that true, sir?
Yes.
Well, then why can't we go on to, why are we having a problem going with the lowest quote right now?
We haven't gone with anyone, and my answer is all this equipment is not all from one single provider. T-shirts are printed generally from a local provider.
Yes.
Pullover sweatshirts are ordered from another provider. Pants are ordered from one place. The safety shoes could be ordered from that place or maybe ordered from another. In our quest to find this equipment, we have shopped to many vendors and are looking for, our goal is to be successful at this and provide our employees with safe and reliable equipment. And who that vendor is, as long as they're reliable and provide the minimum standards, we're open to whoever they are.
You did say that the T-shirts would try to be from a Newton Falls business?
We have purchased all of our T-shirts from a Newton Falls business till recently.
Thank you.
We did get a different bid recently.
Okay, anybody on council have anything else?
There's one fellow that wants to be addressed.
I'm just making sure it's
Thank you.
the council.
I kind of go back to, did you want to say something? I'm sorry. I just want to go back to, in reference to what you just mentioned as far as, bids and quotes and stuff from different providers. I think to me personally, it feels like it makes more sense to have either an allowance or something along those lines and let these gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen pick out their own equipment from their own providers as long as it falls under that allowance. If they want something grander, if they want something better, if they want more, they'll have to pay for it out of their own pocket beyond the allowance. I think we absolutely need to provide these people with the best of what they need. And if your averages are, 350 or 330 to 370, then I think that's what we need to do. But it seems kind of silly for us to tell these professionals where to get their gear from. Giving them allowance and let them kind of do it on their own. Do you think your staff or your roster would? Which way?
Honestly,
do you think
that would be a simple task for us if we allotted that and had a standard how we would purchase that equipment, and they could go and choose. I would hate to tell one size person that you have to wear this pair of pants and it would be uncomfortable. But if it met if they could choose another pair of pants that met fully with the requirement, I would have no issue with them purchasing however or wherever they want. If we choose and it's termed a clothing allowance, if we were to set an amount per firefighter, a set amount, and as long as they purchase the required items, the safety shoes, the pants, the pullover shirt, the t-shirts, frankly, I don't really see any issue with where they get it from.
Okay, Mr. Zimmerman, did you have something?
Just kind of wanted to say real quick, I believe you said that, like T-shirts being bought from a local provider, I believe there'd be some sort of lower rate if you would buy more T-shirts from them at a certain sizes, so that's bringing the rate down there. Same thing with the pullovers, I believe that's...
In most aspects, and to answer Councilman Kropp's question, we would probably say, go buy your own pair of pants, go buy your own shoes. We'll provide the T-shirts and the pullover shirts because we get a better value in a bulk purchase than we do if most vendors will not provide 2 T-shirts that would meet our standards.
But like you said, this isn't just like going to Walmart and buying a pair of jeans off the shelf.
No, sir, not at all.
Whereas if a pair of jeans fail, you throw them away. If a pair of fire pants fail during a fire, you have a much bigger problem on your hands.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Curlin, did you have a...
I just had a couple of questions. Do they get a clothing allowance now?
No.
So the fire district doesn't offer anything?
No, we provide 2 T-shirts.
The other thing, is this for working everyday clothes, or is this for dress clothes?
This is just strictly working uniforms.
Chief, face the mic if you could, because Tom is over there desperately trying to capture the audio.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
We do not provide anything other than 2 T-shirts a year. Let me make that clear, just to make sure. We provide the necessary personal protective gear. That would be what you would call turnout gear. We provide all of that. That is provided. It's custom fitted to that person. But as far as the working uniforms, every single day, it is not a dress uniform. It is a working uniform. We provide nothing other than T-shirts.
Okay, is that sufficient, or do you guys want to make a motion to re-enter into regular council? Got a question? Okay.
Hey, how about the gas, like oil field and all that? That's fire resistant clothes. I work on the oil field, and Centez has to do that. If you rip a pair of pants, they go, they fix them, give you another pair. They wash them every week. They got the stuff over there. I worked there 10 years, and that's what we got our. I don't know if you got to do that.
I can't speak
But
to
I look around on that because I think it'd be a lot cheaper, and then they would, you'd probably get in a big group, so it might be cheaper for you. I don't know, but I check them out. I mean, we got it. I got some at home right now. They got long sleeve shirts. You can get shorts. Check it out.
I can't speak to the oil field. I will just answer, we have researched some uniform companies, and they would exceed this amount for a weekly service easily.
Okay. Is there anything else, or do you want to make a motion to re-enter into regular council?
I would just first like to make sure that the chief, make sure you take back to your staff and your women and men firefighters that they are appreciated, they are valued, and they are respected.
We thank you very much.
Are we allowed to have more than 1 or 2 addresses if we're...
Yeah, council rules are suspended.
Chief, will there be a time limit on when the fellows can go purchase this? In other words, will this drag on and on and on and on?
Absolutely not. We'll establish a time frame.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to re-enter into regular council rules?
I'll make that
So
motion.
moved.
Okay, Mr. Kropp, Ms. Spetzer, roll.
Mr. Kropp?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Switzer?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Okay, back into regular council rules. Have any discussion on this? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'm curious if they would be better served, and if council would agree to maybe table this motion and come up with an allowance as opposed to a dollar amount, a round number dollar amount. I think maybe a yearly allowance or every other year allowance.
That's a thought, and I added up that for 40 firemen, $375 times 40 would be $15,000. So, but I mean, if you would like to table it, if you'd like to amend it, whatever you'd like to do.
Mr. Chairman, could I be heard for a minute?
Yes.
Thank you. Members of council, Mr. Chairman, a couple of things about this. The allowance idea that Councilman Kropp is alluding to, and it was brought up also by Mr. Stinson on the floor, may be a very appropriate way to go, but you don't need to amend this or change it to make that happen, because the ordinance merely reads that the Newton Falls City Council authorize the city to appropriate funds to the Joint Fire District in the amount of $15,000 for fire uniforms. So if you pass this tonight, if in the judgment of the fire chief doing something as it relates to the allowance is the appropriate way to go, then he can do that. If you pass that tonight, and I would just ask the council to turn the whole decision-making process over to the fire chief as is appropriate. We have a fire board for the Newton Falls Joint Fire District. They work with the chief on these matters. And I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the initiation of this. I was approached by one of the members of the Fire Association at one of the fire board meetings a long time ago, and it was initially brought up. Then the chief contacted me to ask if I would initiate the legislation to pay for these uniforms, and I heartily backed that idea. And since Councilman Zimmerman was the fire board representative, I asked if he would be the sponsor of the legislation. So we had a little bit of earlier discussion here about some people think more about themselves and spending things on other things rather than do something to make this happen. The chief asked us to make this happen, and we worked very hard to make this happen. It was placed on the floor in the form of a resolution. It failed in the form of a resolution, not because the council didn't support this. I think as Councilwoman Spletcher said, she would prefer that it be in an ordinance form. But from the beginning, the chief, the city manager, Councilman Zimmerman, and I think I speak on behalf of all the members of the city council, they have championed the idea of doing this. And it was on a resolution form. It failed because some wanted an ordinance form, fine. We put it in an ordinance form. It got one reading already a couple of weeks ago. It then needed a second reading today. And the time has come to say, as I mentioned at that meeting, and as I think the members of this council agree, we trust the chief's ability and authority. If he wants to use a different company or several companies, or if he wants to change it into the form of an allowance, pass this tonight, and you give the chief this authority, which already has oversight from the Newton Falls Fire Board. So, and I understand, Councilman Kropp, what you're alluding to in terms of finding a way to address some of these finer points. But this council is talking about the finer points of administration of the fire department that should be the purview of our fire chief. He's proven himself through the years, and so have these guys. And the guys in the department are watching this time after time after time. And this legislative quagmire that's happened to this beautiful piece of legislation. So I hope that you would not table this thing so we can put this thing to rest. One of the things that was discussed at the beginning of this meeting, now let's get the people's business done. And it would be like Chinese water torture for these guys in the fire department for you not to go forward past this tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Lynch, I appreciate your words, but and although you do trust individuals, the firemen, the police department and such, there's nothing wrong with the council. And looking into things, there's been way too many things that we've forced through before. So it doesn't mean that we're not appreciating the work that they do, so don't guilt council into arm twisting. Mr. Boyer.
When I got these supposed quotes from the two vendors, the one quote had the two shirts, up to $150 for the boots, 2 pair of pants, t-shirt, and I thought it was for 38 firefighters. I still don't have the paperwork in front of me. I have it emailed. I thought that only that came up to about $11,000. I don't mind giving the $15,000, up to $15,000, but I want the money spent the best way we can. And if the chief, I trust the chief by his bids would only get, they came up to 11.5 or 12, then bill us for that. That's what we're voting on, isn't it? Isn't that what we're voting on tonight?
We're voting on a total of $15,000.
Up to?
Up to $15,000, yes. Any other discussion before we either call for a roll or?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Zimmerman.
We've had this presented now for a month. This has been up on 2 different meetings. We trust the chief. We trust Lieutenant Kittle, who have put their time and effort into getting these quotes. This has been sitting here long enough. We've had 2 different excuses the past 2 meetings why this didn't pass. Now it's sitting here again for the 3rd time. We have, excuse me. This is sitting here again for the 3rd time. Let's get our dedicated firemen, our EMS crews, their uniforms. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Zimmerman, the first time you brought this to council, you put it together in a package deal with the soccer mowing, and then the second time you brought it to us, you brought it each of them as a resolution. This is the first time that it's been presented to council properly.
It was explained last week that it was presented properly by Mr. Fritz last meeting, and it was voted down. Based on his opinion, he voted down. Thank you.
All right, do we want to vote for the $15,000? Do we want to table? Do we want to look into an individual amount? What does the council want to do? Call for the roll? Okay. Mrs. King, if you could call the roll.
Bariak?
Yes.
Sputzer?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay, Mrs. King, if you could read ordinance 2021-07.
An ordinance accepting the petition for the annexation of 0.2619 acres, more or less, in Newton Township, Trumbull County, Ohio, to the city of Newton Falls, Ohio.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Dies.
Ordinance dies due to no second. Ms. King, if you could read the motion to set the recall election.
Motion to set the recall date for the 4th Ward for July 27th, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Bariak, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms.
I
Spitzer.
wrote it.
Okay, discussion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jess. I'm sorry, ladies before gentlemen.
Well, as we all know, this has been a long time coming. And, you know, those of us without the legal degree thought that the election should have taken place before July 7th. However, the law director felt that the only thing we had to do before July 7th is name the date. So here we are, naming the date.
Okay, is that all you have, Ms. Spitzer?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, would anybody else like a address? Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak, you have the floor.
I'm going to make this very brief. How much money have we spent to deny the people the right to vote? And here we are back full circle, what we could have done way a long time ago. It's not saying, well, I'm not telling the people the way to vote. That's your own heart. But the people should have the right to vote. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zimmerman, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, sir. So we are not denying anyone the right to vote. All we are trying to do is set a date. Mr. Fritz, can you please explain one more time for the record your opinion on why the date should be held on a certain time?
Stop! I don't need his opinion. I've already got his written
I've asked for his
opinion.
opinion on public record,
What
sir,
did I
please.
just say? I said I've already seen his written opinion.
But I would like to hear it again as public record.
I already said we've seen his opinion. It states very clearly in the charter how you do this. It states very clearly in the charter. You read it, you don't need a law degree to read the charter. It states very clearly that the council shall set the date. And you could go right down through the line. I've heard the legal opinion. I've received the legal opinion. In the last legal opinion, we didn't ask for it and it was flawed.
But what's wrong with saying it one more time?
Because I've already heard it. If that's all you want, Mr. Zimmerman, does somebody else have a second address? Mr. Bariak, you want a second?
The only thing that I would say is that even the county, Mr. Toast said, this is, when they weighed in on, they said it was up to an interpretation. I still haven't got an answer on who asked Mr. Fritz to get involved in it for his opinion. So I want to go by the charter. The charter specifically states this, and I'd like to have this finally voted on, which it's on the agenda tonight for us to finally have a vote. And I don't need to be, I don't need to have the law director. We've hashed this out 55 times.
Okay, does anybody else want to weigh in before we call for a roll? Okay, Ms. King, could you call for the roll?
Splitzer?
Yes.
Zimmerman?
No.
Crop?
Yes.
Bariak?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes July 27, 2021. If Ms. King could read.
A motion to appoint council committees per the attached exhibit.
Okay, do we have a motion for the committees?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'd like to be the first to address, please. I would like to remain on Parks and Rec.
Okay, here's a question. I understand Ms. Splitzer's concern there, and I know I've had Mr. Zimmerman, I talked to him a little bit, Mr. Bariak. What I put together here was a skeleton. And the reason I did so is for us to properly discuss. I don't believe that we've done that in the future. So maybe if individuals, Ms. Splitzer, Mr. Bariak, I know Mr. Zimmerman, if you guys have areas that you look at here that you have a concern with, or Mr. Crop, you know, he's put on here as new at-large person. But if you guys want to look, and if you want to, maybe we put you together your wish list and we amend it, and then we have a proper committee set up that will please all four of you. I mean, is that something that the four of you would like to do?
I'm good with the way you put everything together, other than that one simple change. I would like to remain as head on Parks and Rec, and I'll take on the other ones that you felt I would do a good job at.
Okay, so that's discussion there from Ms. Splitzer is Park and Rec head. Mr. Bariak, Mr. Zimmerman, Mr. Crop, do you have anything that you'd like to add on that?
Council positions are set. They were voted on and passed 3-2 back in January. There's nothing to reset.
Oh,
There's one empty seat available.
That was
for
awesome.
at-large
We had
appointment,
Ms.
at-large
Splitzer came on to council at that time, and they were jammed down her throat. She never got a chance to look at
But
it.
it passed 3-2.
Okay, that's-
So are we going to have everything attacked that passed as long as it doesn't meet an agenda? Is that what we have to look forward to? This was passed by council 3-2.
I don't know. Why don't you ask? Why don't you ask the law director? He's the one that changed his opinion on it, not me. Ask him.
It was passed 3-2. Please, Mr. Fritz, give your opinion.
All right, here. Let's go ahead and we'll do it this way then. Somebody want to make a motion to amend this to have Ms. Splitzer put as the head on the planning and zoning,
I'll make that motion.
Oh, no, Parks and Rec, not
or
planning and zoning.
no, Park and Rec.
Excuse me, Park and Rec.
Okay, Boriak makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call. I'm calling the roll here. I don't need all the back and forth.
I'm just trying to find out if
You're not in.
Point of order.
Mr. Chairman, just trying to find out if you're substituting for Braymire on that then? Is that
Park
what's
and
happening?
Recreation, yeah, she's substituting
Yes.
for Braymire.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Boriak made a motion, Ms. Spletzer seconded to have Ms. Spletzer go into the lead in place of Ms. Braymire in Park and Rec. If Ms. King or Mrs. King could call the roll.
Zimmerman,
No.
Crop,
Yes.
Bariak,
Yes.
Spletzer.
Yes.
Okay, so, okay. Ms. Spletzer is put into Park and Rec. Okay, is there any other discussion on this before we call for the roll? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. So as far as the list of the committee positions, are we going to go through these line item by line item, or are we doing these, how is this set?
No, we're passing it as a,
I make a motion, we pass it as a slate, sir.
as a slate.
Okay.
I make that motion
Okay,
now.
Mr. Boriak makes a motion.
The motion's already out there to approve it as.
Yeah, it's put on the agenda
Right.
as a
It's a single motion.
attached exhibit. Is there any other discussion on this to pass it as is before we go ahead and call the roll? Okay, if Mrs. King could call the roll.
Mr. Crop,
Yes.
Mr. Bariak,
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
No.
Okay, committees passed, retooled. Okay. Motion to appoint counsel. Public comments is next. Open to non-agenda items, name, address, 3 minutes.
Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. Well, congratulations, the circus continued.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Okay,
All right, let's everybody keep it down.
well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The attacks continued from the citizens, Mr. Chairman. The attacks continued on myself, Mr. Lynch, Mr. Fritsch, Mr. Zimmerman, multiple attacks on Mr. Lynch and myself. You did not follow your council rules.
I didn't hear what you said, the text, the attacks.
The
the
verbal attacks.
What are you talking about? At least
Your
if you're going to throw out an
council rules-
accusation,
I
tell me
don't-
what you're talking about. What verbal attacks?
The verbal attacks, the threats, the...
What threats? If you're going to make an accusation, there's council rules
It's
against
not
that.
an
Don't-
accusation. The-
What verbal,
your
what are
council-
you talking about?
Okay, when Mr. Curlin came up, Mr. Curlin came up
Yeah.
and said that my interpretation, it's not an interpretation.
No, it was your interpretation. I'm going to tell you what, you can say one thing, council has every right to ask questions. Every right, that's not an attack. Now, I don't know where you come up with an attack. When somebody is spending money, all of a sudden, this community had no money a couple years ago, and now we're buying everything under the sun. That's not an attack to ask where the money's coming from. Maybe you're rich, but I'm not, and neither are my children. That's not an attack.
Okay, when you question someone's honesty,
I don't remember doing
integrity-
it. I don't remember doing it. If you're going to throw that out there, show me an example of when I did
You
that.
just did.
When?
If you question someone's, my honesty, my integrity, okay? If
you're
you
making no
question
sense.
if you question my ability to he interrupted and you're not running the meeting. That's one of the things I'm talking about. He's the chairman, he's running the meetings. As such, sir. Okay? When people come up here and they, as I just did, turn around and talk to the crowd, the gallery, all right? That's not allowed. That's part of your council rules. You as a body. When they come up and attack Mr. Lynch, Mr. Fritz, you, any of the council members, that's not allowed. That's part of your, as a body, council rules. All right, it's in there. It's number
I
7.
know I've read it many times. Thank you for letting me know again, though. But holding these individuals accountable in their community is not an attack. Is not an attack. Asking a question is not an attack. Me asking for a legal opinion that changes is not an attack.
He's your attorney. He's the law director of this city.
That's nice. I'm glad. But I'm going to tell you what, I've said it before.
But to cut him down and for an elected official to go to another city and cut down our community, the community
That's not a cut down. To ask because you don't agree with. He's to do a service, and if I don't agree with it, I'm going to tell you what, shame on me if I sit up here and take it. You know, I'm going to tell you what, I'd be a rotten mayor, and you would point it out. You could have me recalled if I would go and agree with something that is not good for our community. I don't know what to tell you if you don't like that. That's what these individuals got elected, to make good decisions, and if you don't like that, that's too bad.
Okay,
I mean, you're done. I mean, you're done. You've made your point. I mean, you've made your point.
Okay, and as far as the recall election,
your time's beyond done.
You kept interrupting me, sir.
I didn't interrupt you. I asked you to state out. You stand up here and tell me how I've insulted this person, and you didn't give me. And I asked you for you to make them allegations. We have rules on that too. If you're going to allege that I insulted the city manager, that I insulted, you show me where. And you didn't do it.
I did do it, sir.
You didn't do it. You did not. Your time is done. The next person is up. I mean, you used up your time up making bogus allegations. Your time is up.
Check your council rules. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Shh. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Anna Eby, and I'm part of the Nut House back here. So I would like to really thank the fire chief for coming in and explaining to all of us here and to council what they wanted the money for. I know they had to pass a levy to get their uniforms. I looked up uniforms, and my God, they're expensive. So where everybody was coming up with 15 grand, that's like one uniform. So we finally know what's going on. Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmerman. We have an explanation, and thank you to the fire chief. And you stand there and stand up here, and you're attacking the mayor of this town. Oh, shame on you!
Anybody else?
Jamie Klein, 312 Ridge Road. I only have a couple things to say. We were in the newspaper this week about the Musson case, and I'm just going to say this, Mr. Lynch. It is against HIPAA laws to ask her for anything medical. She could be seeing somebody. You're not allowed to ask. And you should know that as an ex-attorney. Also, I watched a little clip, and as a football mom, that was ignorant for you to say about that little cheerleader. You and Kathy King should be ashamed of yourselves. That's all I have to say.
Rick Curlin, 611 North Canal Street. I first wanted to deal with what I heard the law director mention when he said that it wasn't kept for records on 1099s with the subcontractors. And I question that only because when we worked here in town, we always had to turn in all these subcontractors to the tax department. So therefore, all the subcontractors would be public information. Just like you just said that the contractor would be public information. When I worked for the court, they demanded that I put down all the subcontractors and that was all public information. The other thing that my name was mentioned on with my friend here, when I said that she was interpreting something, that was her interpretation. Well, that's just what it was, your interpretation. It doesn't mean because you say something that it's the law. You interpreted the charter. Now, in my opinion, you interpreted the charter incorrectly. You accused everybody of doing everything wrong. Mr. Lynch doesn't do everything wrong all the time. Certainly the mayor doesn't. Certainly everyone else doesn't all the time. I don't agree with some of the things that happen, and I am quite verbal in my disagreements. Mr. Zimmerman wanted to hear the opinion again on the recall, and that's moot. We've been over that and over that and over that, through the courts and round the buggy. It's public information when you ask for the subcontractors. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Tom Colosimo, 4196 Carson Salt Springs Road. I'm talking as the Vice President of the Newton Falls Area Commerce Association and wrote a statement that I will now read. I have a question for Mr. Lynch about the sidewalks in our downtown. When are the contractors planning on finishing the sidewalk repairs and the holes they made installing the 5G lines? Some of the businesses affected were promised that the repairs would be made on June 29th and closed accordingly. They never showed, and the businesses lost wages for an entire day for no reason or explanation. No explanation was given from zoning or yourself as to why they did not show or when they're going to come back or finish. No notice was given to the downtown businesses that this was even going to happen. No dialogue from the city as to when would be convenient time to conduct these repairs. A courtesy would have been nice so the businesses could plan accordingly. Is there a policy in place to notify the businesses that if anything happens that could possibly interfere with the businesses being able to open or affect their business functions? If not, can one be put in place? Some of these businesses are struggling as it is, and a notification to the businesses would have been greatly appreciated. By the way, the repairs being done are awful. They're chipping and damaging the concrete around the area they're working on. It looks like a big mess. Instead, the entire sidewalk should have been replaced. Also, the marks made on the streets and sidewalks identifying the gas, water, etc. by spray paint need to be removed. I would hope in the future that the city would be more willing to accommodate the local businesses and go out of their way to help them whenever necessary and get their feedback on any issues they may have. Thank you.
Hey, anybody else?
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. I would like to congratulate the residents of the 4th Ward for finally getting their chance to vote. It's been 6 months, a long time coming, and I know a lot of them worked very tirelessly on it. And that's their choice to choose their representation. And if they're not satisfied, that's their choice. Not up for someone else to debate it. And I'd also like to address, like I said last time I was sick, I noticed that Ms. Hurst actually provided emails from Mr. Lynch. I got treated the same way months ago. It seems to be a pattern with his behavior, and I know I'm not the only one, she's not the only one. We've all pretty much been victims of his harassment. So I'm asking again, this community needs to heal, this community needs change, and Mr. David Lynch needs to go.
Laura Nahezel, 227 North Center Street. I'm going to keep this short. One thing I'd like to say is one thing when you hire somebody, you have the ability and you have the right to question what they tell you. And unfortunately, sometimes when things and opinions change, those questions come up more frequently on the validity of what they tell you. I'm sorry, feelings get hurt when questions are asked, but that's why the questions are asked, is because we don't know which opinion is going to be thrown at the wall and stuck this week. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Patty Hans, 3890 East River Road. First of all, Mayor, I would like to thank you for your great appointment. Thank you, Brian, for accepting the position. I think this is something that council has needed. And I see good things happening for the village now. And hopefully with some new faces coming this fall, it will continue. On a lighter note, I just want to let everyone know I'm chairing an event for the Newton Falls Commerce Association, which is going to be our Christmas in July, and that will be on July 24th from 12 to 3 at the City Park. It is open to the whole community, free to the community. We will be having picnic-style food, we have a dunk tank, games for kids, and our hometown Newton Falls Santa will also be there. So we will be putting out more information on that as the time comes. We will have some celebrities in the dunk tank, so it's going to be a good event, so everyone can come out for it. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, closing remarks. We'll start off with Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want everyone to sit here and think for a minute on what we just saw tonight. We had a proposal by the mayor to reshuffle the committees that were passed by council 3-2. They passed. It was legally passed by council and set in place. Now, because he didn't like it, we had to go back and revote and reshuffle things. When I was appointed, I slid into the open seats that worked there. I did not get to pick and choose. Nobody got to pick and choose. These were the open seats for the appointed councilman to slide into from the vacated position. That's what happened. Now, because this wasn't liked by certain people, this has to be brought up again and voted on. Is this the road we are heading down? Are we going to vote on anything that was passed by council that people did not like? Can we expect a revote on this? I don't like this. I don't like the way they voted on this. There's somebody new here to vote. We have to look at this again. Is that where we are headed? This is a very dangerous road that we are heading down, people. Please think about this. Think about what was done, everybody. Not people just sitting here, everyone watching this on TV, just think about this. We also had an accusation made last meeting by the mayor that said he had a picture of Mr. Lynch moving boxes from city council to his private apartment. This was made as part of the public record, and yet we have yet to see any proof of that. Now, he asked everybody else to back up what they say, to be a man of their word, to show what they have. We have yet to see proof of this. I asked someone to ask everyone just to stand up and believe, show what they believe in, be what they want to see in others. Not just expect others to do it, but expect the same of themselves. Thank you.
Okay. Ward 2, do you have anything?
Yes. I'd like to give a thank you again to Mr. Matt Massaros and Mrs. Spletzer and the other fellow, what was his name to help mow?
Richard Lance.
Yes. They've taken it upon themselves to mow this soccer field and help out. And as a matter of fact, I know he doesn't like to get a pat on the back, but he was out painting the soccer poles the other night, 4th of July night, and that to make sure the kids could get out. Now, I'm very happy that the new appointee, Mr. What's his name?
Mr. Crop?
No, not Mr. Crop, the fellow to the Park and Rec.
Park and Rec.
The ball league president.
Rusco.
Mr. Rusco, excuse me. I'm glad Mr. Rusco, I did not attend the meeting, but I'm glad that Mr. Rusco agrees that the soccer people should have a permanent home and that we may end up moving, which we had discussed and let die on the vine. So some of that stuff's in bad shape. It's been there on us since I was a kid. And I'm glad we're going to finally try to work on some problems that we have with Newton Falls and take care of the community first. Yes, there will probably be some changes. I would like to see just honest, open government. There you go.
Is the meeting over, Mr. Mayor?
There you go. I would like to. I would
stay for the entire meeting.
What's he walking out for? What did he do? Quit? I would like continue. I would like to see open government to where everybody knows what's going on. And you know, I want everybody to rest assured that there was to Joe Batista. Joe Batista and I've had complaints. Joe Batista and Mr. Stempert and I passed a resolution a few years back that the city phone would be manned 8 hours a day, no matter who. And people have said that sometimes they can't get a hold of people for 2 hours. We're going to straighten that out real quick too, so people can get in to make a call and get some kind of somebody, or somebody answers the call. And even if we made it so if they have to split their lunch hour, they can split their lunch hour. So we're going to wonder where that went along. If we have to repass it, which I don't think we do, maybe we need to start enforcing the ordinances and resolutions that we pass. Again, thank you, Mr. Mazzaros, and Mr. Kropp. I personally want to congratulate you on stepping up to take this heavy responsibility. Thank you.
Before we go to Ms. Bletzer, Mr. Lynch, do you have any idea where the law director went?
Yeah, he whispered to me he had a family emergency. I saw him read the text.
Okay.
Do I have the floor, Mr. Chairman? Do I have the floor?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, continue.
Anyways, he left with a family emergency.
Okay. All right, Ms. Bletzer.
Well, I'm sorry for whatever the law director's family emergency is, but I will piggyback on a couple of things that Mr. Bariak said, and I also want to thank Mr. Mazzaros and Mr. Lance for all of the work that they put into those soccer fields over there and the mowing that they've been doing, in addition to some of the other maintenance things that they've got going on. I have been asked by a constituent to please mention that the church mouse is in need of volunteers. So that's my public plea. If you've got a little extra time on your hands and can spare a few minutes, a day or two a week, go up and help out the church mouse people. That would be greatly appreciated. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kropp, do you have anything?
Yeah, firstly, I would say in lieu of Mr. Fritz leaving, and it's a shame if he had a family emergency, but I do believe there are, even in an instance of an emergency, asking to be excused from a meeting is a professional and courteous thing to do, no matter what of an emergency, and it would have been simple just to ask. So again, like I said, I hope the emergency that took place wasn't serious and nothing bad happened, but at the same time, professional courtesy and someone who's been in that position for long enough would understand that to request to be excused from their position of employment, to leave prior to their job and their duty being completed, I think it's important. I think we should expect that from all of our members of council, our council staff, and everybody included. With that said, first of all, I want to thank everybody for all the congratulations and everything. I really appreciate it. And it's time to, I want to kind of move past all that and get to work, as everybody's kind of seen. That's been my focus and my goal all this time for the last couple of years of being involved here, heavily being involved, is to try to get work done for the village, to try to do things for the betterment of the community as a whole. And what I would like to ask, I know that the gallery and the people in the community, and I've been one of them myself who's been animated and stuff, I would ask that we try to be better than we've been and try to, all of us, act with class and act with dignity and treat each other with respect and not make accusations and stuff, and try to run this like a real business, because that's what this village is. It's a business made of people, and it's the people that are out there, it's the people that are up here. We're all in this together. We should be all in this together, and I think we all should be on the same page Whether we agree or not, we can have discussions and debates and those kind of things, but I would really like to see us be perceived by the people that are watching this, hearing this, reading about this, perceive us as a classy town, a respectful town, a town with dignity. And that's what I'd really like to request that of the public. And of everyone up here and everyone down there as well, moving forward in the future, I'd really like to see that out of all of us. And I really think that's how we get to that point. I think we all really, really want to get to that point where we're respected, we're viewed as a place where people want to come, people want to live, people want to tour, people want to see, people respect. I think that's really important. And our behavior and how we act and how we carry ourselves moving forward will do just that. So I'm going to try personally myself to do the best I can to act with class and dignity. And even when I disagree with somebody vehemently and passionately, I hope to do that with class and dignity and treat them with respect and have that given back, because that's how we get these meetings done. That's how we get business done. And that's how we're not all here for like 5 hours on meeting nights trying to get these things done. And I'm looking forward to submitting and working with council members and getting legislation passed to better our community. I really am. And I'll be happy to talk to anybody in the community. I'll be having contact information available. It's an early in the process. I just received an email account, and I'll have to get a phone number and everything else to give to the public. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that, as the councilman at large, one of the main reasons that I'm running not only the future, but right now, is that I want to be able to represent the entire community. If there's a ward, or if there's somebody that doesn't feel like they're being heard or being listened to, I want them to know that they have access to someone else who can speak for them and be their voice. I look forward to having caucuses here before the meetings, just like we had where we kind of suspended the meeting minutes. We have the ability in our charter to do that. The input of the public is crucial. It's really important. I believe, as a former member of someone who kept coming up here and talking at these meetings and trying to have my input heard and felt, I really want everybody here, if they have good ideas, I want them to share them, and I want all of us to hear them. That's how we make this town better. It takes a village. It's not just a saying. It's really, really true. So I hope we can all do that moving forward, and I look forward to working with everybody up here and everybody down there and talking to everybody in the community. So everybody, thank you so much, and again, we'll just keep getting to work, keep getting things done. Thank you.
Mr. Lynch, did you have any closing remarks?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. Maybe you can help me with this, Councilwoman Splitzer or Councilman Bariak. I did want to congratulate Mr. Mazzaros. I saw him out there cutting the grass over at Spico Field over the weekend. And what I'm trying to figure out is, so I've talked to a contractor about engaging this. You and I had a discussion about this over at the pavilion when we had that meeting a couple of weeks ago. So what I'm trying to figure out is that an ongoing commitment so I can release the contract? I'm trying to figure out what's going on. You don't have to answer me right now, because I think, to be fair to Mr. Mazzaros and Mr. Lance, we should find out if that's what's happening, but I do need to communicate with the contractor so that I'm not telling somebody, well, show up this week, but don't show up next week. We're not sure if they're coming the week after that. The soccer season obviously goes all the way into the fall. So if you could communicate with me on that, I'll send you an email tomorrow, but if you could get that so I can go to the contractor and just release them, because I know that there's a firm commitment. I know the soccer leagues, they're entitled to know one way or another what the heck is going on. So that would be very helpful. And the only other thing I had to say is that I agree with what Councilman Kropp had to say, and I hope that will mean that we have a more positive future as we move forward. And those are my remarks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I just got a few things here. I wanted to thank every individual that showed interest in the at-large position. I mean, as I said, when Mr. Kropp was sworn in, a lot of times individuals will complain about situations and then you don't have anybody there to do anything. But we had 9 people step forward, and and I appreciate that. We looked and at each individual, and when it came down to it, it was up to me. And like I had told my wife, I had different individuals ask me about it, what I was going to do, and I said, when it comes down to it, whether Mr. Kropp does well or if he doesn't do well, hey, it's going to be on me. I made the decision. Somebody's going to say something about him is going to reflect on me. So I chose the individual that I had the confidence in doing the things that needed to be done. You know, anybody can run something, or anybody can lead something on an easy day. When there's softball questions or whatever else, anybody can do that. But I wanted a person that I knew in tough times that I could count on, and that's who I chose. And it's not a knock on any other individual here, but me and Mr. Kropp have butted heads enough times, and he's butted right back, and he's as hard-headed as I am. And you know what I mean? So I know where he stands on situations. So I do thank him, and I thank every individual that you know, showed interest. Also wanted to thank all of council. We got some work done tonight, a little bit, but baby steps. And Mr. Zimmerman, you asked me a question, if that's what we can expect. Yes, it is. We can expect to have discussion. You know, the last time we had these committees, they weren't discussed, they were rammed through, and I thought they were done inappropriately. So I put them on the table, and all 4 people here had the opportunity to discuss. You know, I asked if anybody else wanted anything adjusted, if they were unhappy with anything, but we put them out there so we could discuss them. So if there's other things that have been done in the past that have been inappropriate, I want them done appropriately. You know, we have quorums that we'll have meetings, we'll have official meetings. We'll sit down and we'll discuss the things like adults. And so do I expect that going forth? Yes, I do. Lots and lots of thank yous. I'll throw names or committees out there. I could never get them all right because there's so many great organizations and people in this community. We've had a lot of events right here real quickly in 1 week, 2 weeks over the summertime. You got the 4th of July committee. Great job as always. Our fireworks, amazing. Like always, I don't know what you would call our grand finale, but that was amazing. I thought it looked like paper mache coming at me. I thought I was back in my old days at a Pink Floyd concert there for a second, you know? But we won't go there. But the bike club, you know, whatever your title is there, the individuals that put together the Jeep crawl, the Commerce Association, all that you're doing, and the Christmas coming up. Thanks for having my front yard. It's so nice to be able to walk to all these events. And I'm going to tell you what, the street department, man, I'm going to tell you what, they did an amazing job cleaning up after. I always get on my kids and I said, you know what, the job's not done until the tools are put away and you cleaned up after yourself. And I looked out there the next day, I'm like, this is ridiculous. You know, what's the matter with the city manager? Should have had a better plan. Should have got this. You know, how are we going to get this cleaned up? It's going to be August or September. You know, I had to eat my words because they did a great job and they went and they cleaned it up. And I just wanted to, Rich Koss, Mike Harnicher, whoever, you know, I always tell them 2 guys for... Justin, is that his name? Okay. Each individual there, the stuff that they do, all the hats they wear, I appreciate it. And anybody else in the community, you know, all the stuff that you do, I appreciate. You look at the different signs that are down for this road closed because so many different things going on in such a small community. So many people come to Newton Falls. You know, my wife asked me a long time when we first got married, she said, why is it that anybody that lives in Newton Falls, you went to school here, why do they never leave? And she remembers the response. I said, why would you? Why would you leave? You know, but there's so many thank yous, and I just, you know, I want to throw it out there. So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
You're too quick.
Okay, Ms. King, want to call a roll call real quick?
Bariak.
Yes.
Switzer.
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Kropp.
Yes.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Bye-bye. You were quick, John. You like that stress ball?